Just another go. So hello, and welcome to Hot Tea Blog, where the tea is always hot. And I'm Sha-Kurah Valiant on another YouTube video. Hopefully this one will come out decent. So I just wanted to share some random musings for the day. I've been thinking a lot about feminism and gender and femininity and the social norms behind them. And for years, I've always pondered on the question of where we as Black women fall into these categories. Because as I've stated before in one of my blogs, is that Black women have and still are viewed as a type of gender non-conforming other. And we have a history to thank for that, And what has motivated me to discuss the coming topic is the fact that I am seeing a movement, though to me it seems like a very small one, but still a movement nonetheless, of Black women following suit with socially acceptable femininity. Is Black women trying to get back in touch with being feminine and kind of getting a feel of that. And trust me, as a Black woman, I understand why so many Black women are allowing themselves to be more vulnerable, to feel a little dainty and less emotionally guarded, which are all traits associated with the feminine. And admittedly, it is freeing. It is a very freeing experience, and that's hard for me to admit as an individual, not just a Black woman, but as an individual. It is kind of difficult for me to admit that, hey, it feels kind of nice to just be a little soft sometimes. And because we as Black women, we hail from a culture as well as a society that has not been kind enough to us to allow us to be free to be these things. It is taught to many of us to always be on our guard and vigilant, because if it's not racism we have to be prepared for, it is the possible violent realities of some of our communities. I mean, let's not kid ourselves here. Black women make up for a higher percentage of domestic violence homicide victims than any race of woman in this country. And, that's only one of the things that basically plays into why we can't be vulnerable, why we can't be less guarded. And when Black women allow ourselves to be vulnerable in these kinds of communities, it basically just puts a giant target on our backs. Not just in, our own communities where vulnerability is seen as a weakness and is fed off of, but in racist society, it's a very peculiar sense of victimization that comes into play, which I'll probably do a video or write a blog on that sometime in the future. But it is understandable that Black women just don't have the luxury of enjoying the perks of femininity as we know it. And like I said earlier, when you get the chance to enjoy these fruits that we've been denied, it feels kind of nice. But in all honesty, have tasted it, the feeling of having my guard down and feeling protected and carefree and taken care of. No battles to fight, no one to take responsibility for, no need to be held responsible for an entire race or for all protecting the men of our race, and just living as a woman, not a Black woman, which is a whole other life, a whole other journey, but just a woman prancing about in a dress, afro whipping against the wind. It feels nice, but a feeling kept nagging at me as I'm enjoying this perk of femininity. And that feeling was knowing where femininity originated from. All that we know today came from the social norm. Our behaviors, the definition of this, that, and the third, what it is to be a man, what it is to be a woman, what it is to be this, that, whatever. It doesn't take rocket science to determine who established these social norms, right? The people in power basically establish the social norms that we accept and adhere to on a day-to-day basis. And social norms are taught through media, especially institutions, sometimes at home, and so on. And we all know that the white majority controls what is deemed as normal. Unfortunately, unlike the black male collective, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it for anybody because we all know that it's true, the white male uses his power to promote white women, or the white woman that he feels should be elevated as the ideal, because not all white women are elevated. It's a peculiar type of white woman that is often elevated and promoted in the media. And this woman would be one of leisure, a woman who's oblivious to the truths of hard work and struggle, and that is the woman that the media has presented as being the ideal feminine woman. Now, let me ask y'all this. Does that sound like black women? Does that sound like us? I don't think so. At least in not my opinion, they do. Now, if you guys ever checked out my blog and saw my About Me page, you would know that I'm a criminology major. And I took a couple of classes on gender and sexuality and how intersectionality changes the ways in which, authority figures interact with people. If you're a person of color and you happen to be gay, and this, that, and the third. And I read a very interesting article, and I wish for the life of me I could find the name of the article, or at least the first name of the writer of the scholarly journal. But I do have the excerpt that I wanted to share with you. So the criminologist is named Klein. That's her last name. And she discusses how women of color and poor women were never meant to fit this image of femininity. And she quotes, "In setting hegemonic standards of conduct for all women, the theorist defines femininity, which they equate with healthy femaleness," so meaning if you're feminine, you are a healthy female, in a classist, racist, and sexist terms, using their assumptions of women's nature, specifically their sexuality, to justify what is often in reality merely a defense of the existing order. Lombroso, Thomas, and Freud considered the upper-class white woman to be the highest expression of femininity. Now, ladies, I can talk to you all day about how this affects the ways we are treated by the authority figures. I can mention how compared to white women, we serve harsher prison sentences, and so on. But I will save that heavier stuff for a later date. I think this would be a very soft way of introducing how femininity doesn't really give us benefits because of the fact that it was based on white women, specifically upper class white women. But getting off that, it is clear that femininity was designed without the black woman in mind, to put it short. So is it fair to hold women to a standard, any woman for that matter, to a standard that they do not have the luxury of accomplishing because it was designed without them in mind? I think not. I don't think it's fair at all. But do I believe femininity is possible for us? Actually, yes, I do. I think it's so very possible. We just have to redefine it. I always tell people, I'm not girly. I'm not feminine. I'm womanly. I carry myself as a woman. From the sway of my hips to the sternness of my gaze. I am not vulnerable or easily taken advantage of, but I am approachable, and I soften myself when it calls for it. I am not dainty, but I am more than welcoming to my emotions and limitations and handle them accordingly and with grace. Now, this is not a lecture. I'm not here to teach anybody how to be anything. If the standard definition of femininity vibes with you, girl, go ahead. But I don't want Black women to feel obligated to achieve that which may at times feel unachievable. For a long time, I thought silky, long hair, straight hair was more feminine. But when the natural movement boomed, I now feel more like a woman as my natural self. Why is that? Because we redefined femininity and made her in our image. And I think that's something we should strive to do. So that's all I wanted to throw out there for today. Very short, simple stuff. Nothing too heavy. If anything you heard on today's blog or channel, whatever video, vibes with you, won't you be so kind to subscribe to my channel? Tell your friends about me if I'm worth, the time, and give me some constructive criticism. Check out my Instagram, whatever. This whole channel, the blog, is a service to Black women that I feel like needs to be given, and I really want to be I want this to be an accomplishment, and being able to service you in which I feel you guys are worth being serviced. So with that being said, love to hear from you all. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll check y'all later.